Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another dynamic episode of the Single Parents Podcast. This is the podcast for anybody whose life may have turned out a little less than traditional. It's your boy Anthony here. Again this week, we're joined by
Steph.
Oh yeah, you guys liked her so much when we were, what have we even, we were talking about Love is Blind. That's why I was trying to remember what we talked about. Looking back, that's one of those episodes that probably will date itself pretty quickly.
For sure.
Like a year from now, there's probably not going to be a very relevant episode, but that's why we had to bring you back.
Exactly.
Because we have to keep it current. You got to familiarize yourself with Steph because hopefully you're going to be around a lot more.
Yeah,
so
hopefully you guys will see plenty of me.
Yes, I love it. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you're all having a good week. Steph, before we get into all the stuff we planned, I think I need you to validate my feelings a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a little scenario and you just tell me. All right. So basically, this is what happened. I was supposed to meet up with a friend today, female friend. Got to give that context.
Okay.
Female friend for just coffee today, right?
Okay.
So we're just cool. Like in my head, like she's cool person. Like she has a lot of like political, I guess you could say, like opinions that I think are pretty legit. So okay, we'll get coffee.
Okay.
I want to hear your thoughts. So anyways, we were messaging about like setting up the plans, and I was like, oh, blah blah blah. Hey, when we get there, I'll get the coffee. And she's like, oh no, you don't have to do that. And I was like, no, this is how I phrased it. I phrased it like, no, that's okay. I'll get it because I was the one who asked you out.
Okay.
In my head, I'm thinking like asked you out as in like, hey, do you want to hang out, get coffee, talk about some of the stuff? But then she responded. How does she respond exactly? Basically, she responded like, oh, like I thought this was just like two friends getting coffee. Like, and she did like the like shy emojis, stuff like that. And I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, okay. So then I was like, oh, why? This is kind of what I meant. But then I kind of like thought about it and I was like, oh, shoot, like, should I have like, does she want me to ask her out on like on a date? Like I wasn't thinking about that. But like now I'm like maybe starting to overthink it. And so then I sent another message back basically saying like, basically like, is this supposed to be a date? Like I'm confused now. And then she was like, no, I'm basically saying like, no, like this is just friends getting coffee type of thing.
Okay.
But then I think my ego kicked in because I had talked to her because she phrased it like, no, this is friends getting coffee because like where I'm at in life, I'm good. Just basically doing me the whole, like, we're just friends thing, which is normally like, fine, whatever. I wasn't even thinking about that. But then, like I said, my ego kicked in because not too long before that, we had talked again, and she was telling me about like these different guys who were asking her out, and she was going to give them chances, but they kind of fumbled and all these things. And so then I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, I know that you're not necessarily totally closed off to dating and stuff, like, because you just told me like these guys, if they would have fumbled, you would have went out. And so then my ego is like, well, why am I? And so anyways, then I kind of had like forgot about it, to be honest. And then she ended up canceling today anyways. But do you think I was justified in getting my feelings hurt for like a hot second?
I think yes. I think this is the part that gets me, because I think initially when it was just kind of like the miscommunication of how you worded it, that's one thing. But then when you touch base on the part that she has talked to you about dating other people and being open to the idea of dating other people, that's where it feels a little hurtful, kind of like I can see why you would be hurt by that, because that's like if that happened to me and I was like, someone was like, oh no, like it's not a date, I'm not dating right now, but then they're like, oh yeah, I went on a date last week and I would have kept dating, like
exactly.
You're kind of just contradicting yourself. So I would have probably also got my feelings hurt.
Okay, thank you. Because I was like, because again, I literally like that happened like maybe Monday, Tuesday, I don't know, and then I kind of forgot about it the rest of the week. But then I was like, you know what, like, why? I think it's just one of those things where like I don't know if it's like you want what you can't have type thing, but like
Right.
I
It bothers
wasn't
you more now.
attending, but like now that you rejected me, now I kind of wanted this to be a date, even though. And so, anyways,
It totally, it's like, it's dating is such a mind game for that reason. It's
yeah.
like, if you're not really that interested, it's not that big of a deal. And then all of a sudden, when they're not interested in you anymore, you're like, I've had that where it's like, I'm talking to a guy and I'm not really like, we're talking, but I'm not really like that into it. And then he starts dating someone else and I'm like, what the hell? But it's not, it's just, it's an ego thing, like you said.
Yeah, I think it's just my... Okay, well, thank you. I need mostly for my ego, I needed my ego validated, so you did that, so thank
I'll
you.
validate you on that
Oh,
one.
I appreciate you. Thank you. And I appreciate all of you out there. Again, hope you all are doing well, having a good week. Before we really get into the good stuff on today's episode, there's a few things I'd just like to ask you to do. Well, speaking of egos, the first thing I'll just say is just if you like the show, rate the show 5 stars, the highest rating possible on your favorite podcast hosting platform. Because not only does that tell the algorithms out there that the show is legit and puts it out to more people, it feeds that ego that I keep bringing up because I get to see all your guys' beautiful reviews. And so I definitely appreciate that, obviously. The second thing you can do is just share the podcast. Share the podcast with a friend, family member, neighbor, somebody who's friend zoned you for no reason. Just go ahead and put it on out there so we can spread the show to more people, keep building the community that is the Single Parents Podcast. And then last but not least, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you turn on notifications, not only on your podcast platform, but YouTube as well. All the social medias to search us. We're there. Like, subscribe, do the things so you never miss an episode in the future. All right. You ready to get rolling on the good stuff?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Something to relate to.
All right. So, Steph, as I feel like I say this every single week on the show, but this is just the reality, so I'm just going to roll right into it. I was just kind of scrolling through social media one day, scrolling through Facebook, as I normally do. Like I said, this is how all my segments start out, it seems. But I came across a post from a single mom who posted that. I guess this technically can go to like moms or parents in general. Like, I don't think the basis of this post necessarily was specifically about single parent life, but that's our context, so we're going to kind of expand on it through that lens. The post said this. The post said, mommy and pre-mommy are two different people. Not to say she won't visit from time to time. And then there's like a little sub post under that. It says, before I was a mother, I was a menace to society. Stop playing with me. And so we were kind of texting a little bit about this because I shared that screenshot of that post with you. And we were talking about, okay, like for our context, being single parents, what do we notice about ourselves when we kind of compare current single parent Anthony and Steph versus pre-parenting, pre-single parent in general Anthony and Steph? Like, who were we? How have we grown? What we've noticed about ourselves? And so I sent that to you a couple of days ago. So I'm just going to throw it to you because I'm actually curious to see what you kind of observed when you looked at yourself.
So this one is semi-hard for me because I was so young when I had Olive. I was only 22 when I had her. So I spent most of my, big 21 pregnant. So I had to think back, like, beyond that. So it's funny. I, didn't have a super long party phase or like menace to society phase. Maybe, for sure in high school, because when you live in a small town, there's few things to do other than be a menace.
True.
But I think when I really think about it, and this is going to sound terrible, but when you're younger, you really have a disregard for your own safety. Like, you really, like, you do stupid things.
Yeah.
And I think when you become a parent, you start to think of things in the context of, like, someone counts on me.
Right.
Someone needs me to get home. So I think about it in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And then additionally, I think about how different life is when you have a kid, especially if you have friends who don't have kids.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They can just say like, oh, I want to go on this last minute trip. Let's take a trip to Boise this weekend. Anything, even something small. But when you're a parent, you can't always just be like, oh yeah, let me go. let me just pack a bag and run off. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just how much it affects your life, that people who don't have kids don't realize all of the extra planning that goes into being spontaneous.
Right.
It's not as much of a possibility anymore.
That's a good point. Yeah, I kind of had that a little bit last weekend. Not like anything big, but like I have a buddy who he lives with his brother, but his brother's like out of town. And so it's just him, and he can probably just bored and alone. And he's like, hey, why don't you come over and hang out? But my girls had like gymnastics, and it was a Friday, so they just got done. Well, they didn't have school because our area doesn't have schools on Fridays, but they were doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So anyways, I had to be like, hey, like I have the girls, we have gymnastics and stuff like that. And he's kind of like, okay, whatever. Like he understood, but like it is interesting, like looking at his dynamic. One, like as single as she can get, no kids coming up, literally could just do whatever he wants. And his mindset is like, hey, like I want to hang, so let me text my boy. But like in my context, I'm like, I'm gonna need at least like 3 to 5 business days before I can commit to anything, because my calendar's so booked.
Yes.
And so, but it's interesting looking at a little bit about that though, doing the co-parenting thing, because the weeks when I don't have my girls, it is kind of like that.
Right.
And I do have a little bit more freedom. Like I use my freedom to like go to the grocery store and not have a terrorist by my side the whole time, or go get a haircut without somebody running up and down and meet you. Like it's nice doing like those things. It's cool. But like I literally can be like, I'm gonna go get a haircut and jump in my car and
just go.
Versus when I do have my kids, I'm like mentally preparing all day. We have to go to the store tonight.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You got this. You're strong. You're brave. You're bold. We got this. It's like going into battle.
I think the biggest thing when you bring up like the co-parenting aspect and being able to do, like, you do have those moments, that 3-4 days or whatever it may be, that you can do whatever and you can just run off and do what you want. But I even think about in context of like, it's coming into summer, we're trying to plan summer trips, figure out what we want to do this summer. And it's every time it's like, okay, well, let's go, near so-and-so's birthday. And I have to like pull up the schedule and be like, okay, I'm free this weekend and this weekend. Right. Like, because I always try to not do things the weekends that I have her, because if I've got her, I want to be with her. But it is funny, like I'm always the friend that's like, oh, let me pull up my planner, because I got to tell you exactly what weekends I can go. And if they don't line up with your weekends, then I'm not going.
I'm always getting the calendar out and like doing like kids this week, no kids this week. And then it'll like, usually a lot of the times they'll want to hang out and do something crazy when I have my kids. And I got to be like, well, sorry, but there are the rare occasions when it's like, oh, I don't have my kids this week. Cool. Let's do it. Let's go. But I think for me, looking back at this whole idea of who I am now as a single parent versus who I was before, I think a big thing that I've learned is that I've always been like ambitious. Like as young as I can remember, I've always like been creative and driven and wanted to like put stuff out and had an idea. I'm like, okay, this is my idea, so this is what we're going to do to make it happen. I've always been like that. But I look back and see those aspirations in me before I was a parent. And a lot of it was just like, these are my dreams. This is what I want to do, like my vision, whatever. Now that I'm a parent, especially a single parent, I have a lot of those same like goals and ambitions and things like that. But the motivation has changed to where before, when it was just me, it's like, this is who I want to be, so I'm going to go do this. But now a lot of my goals and ambitions are centered around obviously like my kids and setting them up eventually for success, and then seeing certain things within me, like seeing their dad go after their goals. And honestly, like it motivates me to work harder, because now like I have a lot of stuff in myself that I want to achieve in my own goals. But now when I'm kind of like, man, like doing the podcast, for example, like, again, I think we've said this before, but in case you're new, like this whole show is just literally like me in my living room, like Steph's daughter's like literally sitting in a chair right off to the corner because my house isn't that big. And like literally it's just, we're not in a studio, like we don't have fancy producers. This isn't owned by a podcast hosting network. It's literally just us. And so for me to do the show, I have to set everything up, and I got to clean, and I got to prep, and then I got to edit, and I got to make sure the camera has batteries. And literally today, as we were getting ready for this episode, I had to like format the memory card because it still had old footage on it. Otherwise, we would have ran out of data. And me remembering I had to do that for some reason, even though it takes like 2 seconds, like made me exhausted. Because I was like, oh my gosh, the list of things to do never ends. So I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. But then it's just kind of silly. So I was like, whatever, it's Saturday. Like maybe I just, but then I thought about, again, my kids, the extra motivation of like, hey, like if you like work hard at something, then eventually, even if it is this podcast, that could grow to something that could eventually be something that you can bless your kids with.
Right.
And your kids can see that success. And so that, as silly as it sounds, thinking about my kids gave me the motivation to go and format my memory card. And because otherwise I probably would have texted Steph and be like, you know what, like, I'm going to go take a nap. Like, let's just do this some other time. Exactly. So I know that's silly and goofy, but like, I think it's learning about the actually, to be like, maybe this is cheesy, but like having kids has really shown me a lot of strength in me that I don't think I would have known was there without them constantly being that extra like motivation. Because like I have to do a lot of stuff, even just outside of creative stuff, like to be able to work all day, make dinner, clean house, put kids to bed, do homework, budget your own finances, still try to have a social life. Like all that is a lot. And so like there'll be days I end the day and I'm like, I'm exhausted, but you know what? Like, I'm kind of proud of myself.
Yeah, I accomplished a lot.
I did a lot, and I got everything I wanted done, and like that, like makes me feel good, and the fact that I have that strength in me. So I don't know. That's just kind of what I thought.
I honestly completely agree with that because I think when you put it in the context of like my kids are watching me accomplish all of this, it does give you a little bit of extra motivation.
Yeah.
I work a lot. I work 2 jobs and I, stay busy, and people always are like, oh my God, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you work so many hours? How do you do all of this stuff? And I'm like, I'm just doing what needs to be done to like provide, number one, provide the life that I want my daughter to have. And number 2 is like, I never want her to grow up and think that life is just going to be handed to her. Like you have to work hard.
Yeah.
And I think even if I can instill that work ethic in her just through her watching my actions, I think that that's doing her a good service.
Definitely. So like if you now, Steph, single mom in general, could go back and like tell your younger pre-mom self anything to like, hey, like keep this in mind as you grow, as you turn into the person that you are today. Is there anything that comes to mind that you go back and tell her?
I honestly think I would just go back and tell her to be a little easier on herself.
Nice.
I think we all tend to be our own worst critics, but I think sometimes I put just the most insane standards on myself.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of just like I spent all this time constantly being worried. And I think life has turned out great. Life has turned out just fine. So I guess that would be the one thing, like stop being so hard on yourself. Everything is going to work out and turn out great.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think for me, I would tell my younger self to, kind of in the same vein, but just like relax and like not take things so serious because like, yes, same thing. I put a lot of like standards, like expectation on myself. But I think anybody's like this, they say hindsight's 20/20. Like looking back though at a lot of stuff that I was like stressing and anxious about, now I'm like, like wasn't that big of a deal. Or when similar situations come up, like say it's about like finances or time management or job stuff, now I can be like, all right, whatever, it's not that big of a deal because like I've learned how to navigate it before. I know how to get through it. I know. So like now after all these years, I think I can just hopefully learn how to relax and just chill and be in the moment. And I think that, again, those are things my kids have taught me because you have to like really learn how to be in the moment with them and not take things so seriously because kids don't take a lot of things serious.
No.
So you have to live with that.
Life is a lot more fun if you just take on some of their traits every once in a while.
I agree. Well, let us know, people. Tell us about your story a little bit. Tell us about how being a single parent, how being a parent in general has changed you. Maybe not. Maybe you're still exactly the same person that you were pre being a mom or pre being a dad that you are now. That would be pretty interesting to talk to somebody about that. If you want to get a hold of us, use the socials, but you could also use the email, thesingleparentspodcast@gmail.com. That's thesingleparentspodcast@gmail.com.
Something to think about.
Okay, so I actually had a topic that I wanted to bring up. Something that I came across, of course, on TikTok for probably a couple years ago now. And it's a study that was done by the Gottman Institute. And the study technically is on marriages and what is going to make a marriage last or fail. But I've watched a few videos on it and them relaying it to every single relationship in your life. And I relay it to my relationship with my daughter all the time. And basically what the study was is it's called, they did the study specifically on like the birds, but it's called looking for a bid from a partner or from someone important to you. And so essentially what the test was is when someone's looking for like a bid, it's a bid for attention. So you say, oh my gosh, look at that cool bird out the window. And how your partner, friend, child, parent responds to that gives them a lot of insight into how successful that relationship will be. So essentially a bid is just you saying, I want to have this small connection with you. So they would say, oh my gosh, look at, there's a hummingbird out the window. And if the partner responds and just is like, yeah, cool, whatever, and kind of brushes it off, that's a negative reaction to a bid. If the partner's like, oh my gosh, yeah, look at that hummingbird. That's so cool. I know you love birds, right? Giving them that little bit of attention that they're looking for, showing them that you also pay attention to what they enjoy. So that's the basis of the study.
Okay.
But I think realistically, if you think about it, and we kind of touched on this on the last episode I was on with you, it's the constant like, mom, watch this. Mom, look at this. Mom, check this out. Those are all bids.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really easy to kind of, especially when you're tired after a long day, to just have the response that's like, yep, that's cool, and just kind of move on. But they've shown in this study that the more you positively react to these bids, the stronger your relationship is. So when your child is, say they're interested in, the first thing that comes to my head is like LOL dolls. Olive loves LOL dolls.
Yep.
So if Olive is like, Mom, look at this, I changed her outfit, or I'm playing with these guys, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool, and she wants to tell me their names, and I'm reacting, and I'm watching, and I'm listening to what she has to say, I'm responding positively to her bid, and I'm showing interest in something that she's interested in. And that little small thing, it's maybe at the most a 5-minute interaction, strengthens our relationship. So I think about it all the time, because I still have those moments where I'm like, I just don't have the energy right now, you know? And so there's still times where like, she'll be like, Mom, look. And I do the like, yep, that's cool. Okay. And then that's kind of end of conversation and I don't pursue it any farther. But I think that this study is so interesting. It's like, it's my Roman Empire, you know?
I love it. That's good.
So I wanted to bring it up and ask what you thought about that. And do you think that that's something that like you apply in your life even without knowing about the study? Now that you know about it, is that something you notice?
Yes. And I think, especially after you shared that with me the other day, definitely, actually, not even just that, but going back to our conversation on the last podcast when we had talked about, that's what it was. The episode was about like how to like enjoy your kids.
Right.
And so we kind of like touched on that a little bit. And so I actually texted you about this last weekend. Right. I really like walked away from the conversation that we had on that podcast episode. Really like, I was contemplating it a lot. I was like, I don't want to just like put on a performance for the show and be like, oh yeah, that's good advice, Steph, and like whatever.
Right.
But I was like, you know what, like I thought it was like some really good stuff that you brought up, and so I wanted to apply it to my relationship with the girls that upcoming week. And I first off noticed that like it is, I think maybe I said this on the show last time, but like it is something that I really, I don't know if struggle's the right word, but like I know it's really, really easy for me to not put a lot of emphasis on those bids, as you were saying. Like it's very easy because like just how, maybe it's just how my brain works in general. Like I am always like constantly moving and going 100 miles an hour and thinking about like 5 different things at once that I don't even realize it until sometimes days after that they were offering me, well, now I know the terminology, offering me those bids.
Yeah.
And I think I said this on the show, they'll like say something, and then when usually it's when they go back to their mom's house or something, I'll look back and I'll be like, oh, like they were trying to get my attention. They were trying to get that value.
Have that connection. Yeah.
And so then I always like go back and feel guilty and stuff like that. But anyways, I was trying to like really like live into that over the past week after we had that conversation. And I realized that yes, in the past, that is something I need to work on, but I just noticed how often each of my daughters do offer up those bids and how kind of frequent it is in different ways. So like kind of a big example that stood out was one of my daughters. Oh, this is going to be a little braggy, but well, it's okay. With my podcast, I'll brag about my daughter.
Yes.
She just won her class president election for 3rd grade.
That's awesome.
So she's the 3rd grade class president.
Wow.
My older daughter, Ev, she's 8. And so that was a big thing because we made a poster and she had to write a couple speeches and all this stuff.
Yes.
And so I, of course, when she told me she won, I was like, yeah, all right, you know. But then my 7-year-old, Maddie, she instantly started, I guess, offering up those bids because now all of the attention for the time was on her big sister winning that election. And yes, I was stoked, and yes, that was legit.
Right.
But she was like, oh, okay, well, I need to get a little attention now too. So she started bringing up stuff in her class, and I just recognized what she was doing in that time, and I just really, hopefully I did a good job, made a conscious effort to slow down and to hear what she was saying. She was talking about like helping like a new kid in her class or something, and to really celebrate her just as much, and something that she was still proud of. Like I could tell she was bringing it up to get that attention and validation like her sister was getting from winning the class election, but it was still pretty cool. She was proud of it. And stuff like that. But then, as you said, there's just times when you're just mentally exhausted or all over the place or scattered, and your reaction isn't always going to be that fully involved and going to be that in depth and stuff like that. And so I think okay, so I guess ultimately to answer your question, after kind of thinking through this, I've learned that I need to be, I guess, gracious with myself, because I'm not practically just going to be able to always give them that full extent
every single time.
Every time. Because I'm very like in or out, black or white, 100% or nothing. And so like not saying I'm going to stop like giving my kids love or affection if I can't do it 100%. But that's where my guilt comes in. It's like if I'm not doing it 100%, then I feel like a crappy dad. Then I feel, especially when they go back to their mom's house and I'm sitting on my couch by myself and I'm thinking back to the week I had with them, instantly I'm going back to all the times I fumbled and messed up. And so I just need to be more gracious, but more aware of the times when I can live in those opportunities.
Yeah, when you can really have that response. And they're also, I think, kids especially, because they're still learning social interaction, right? Even with you as their parent.
Right.
I think sometimes they also need to learn when the appropriate time is to ask for those bids. So if you're right in the middle of cooking dinner and you've got this burner going and you know what I mean?
Right.
They also have to start learning that that's not an appropriate time to need that full undivided attention from you. When you sit down and start eating dinner, that's the moment that like, hey, I did this really cool thing in school today and I want to talk about it. So I think too, something not necessarily dismissing the bids, but saying like, hey, I'd love to talk about this with you, but will you bring it up to me a little bit later?
Oh,
so that's something
good.
I think it still validates, hey, I'm listening to you. I know you want to talk about this. I know you're excited.
Okay.
Let's chat about this tonight while we're having dinner. Let's chat about this while we drive to school in the morning, you know? So then it's like, I'm here. I'm hearing you.
Right.
Now's not the correct time.
Is that what you usually do? Because that's really good advice.
Yeah, I'll tell Olive, I'll say, hey, let's, I'm so busy right now, or I'm on the phone. A lot of times I'll be on the phone and it's, Mom, look at this, Mom, look at this. And I'm like, hey, I would love to, but let me get off this phone call first.
Okay.
So it's the little bit of like redirection of, I hear you, now's not the right time. You need to understand also on your end that there are appropriate times, and there are going to be times when I'm not fully available to you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. I really like that. I guess yeah, because again, I'm so like extreme with it that I think taking that into consideration, that's really good, because then I think that will help a lot with my guilt, because then I can use it as a teaching opportunity to like work through like boundaries and expectations and stuff like that. And like, I think hopefully they know, like usually for us, it's like before bed, like bedtime.
Right.
Because I've kind of noticed this a little bit. So I start like getting us ready for bed earlier with the fact in mind that when we usually lay down to go to bed, that's when they start like sharing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this is what, like, usually when I pick them up from
Save
school,
it all.
it's like, hey, how was school? And they're like, it's good.
That was fine.
And then right before bed, they're like, this and this happened, and this person showed up, and this is how this person responded to this, and Dad, you're not going to believe this. And they'll go all night if I let them. So I have
You're
to
like, you were supposed to be asleep 20 minutes ago.
Literally. But I think, yeah, they're smart. They know that's a tactic to
course.
avoid going to
Yeah.
sleep partially. But to like have special, like you said, maybe it's like at dinner or before bed or driving to
Yeah.
school. So they know, like, obviously you have access to me whenever you want, but there are times when I can be more attentive than maybe just randomly when I'm trying to work or something
Yeah.
like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think,
right.
I mean, that's
good.
all I really had on that. So
Dang, you're just dropping with. I think this podcast is just going to turn into me getting parenting advice from you, because this is really good.
don't hype me up too much, because I have plenty of my failures on that part. So
Okay, good. So then we'll just eventually get to episodes where you bring up your
I just
stuff.
talk about all the stuff I'm really good at. Really hype myself up.
Smart.
Something to be encouraged by.
All right. Well, Steph, listen, this is kind of how it's been on the Single Parents Podcast 2024. We have officially declared this season of the show as our hot era, because as I kind of vision casted back in January, we on the show, like, we want to make sure no matter what we talk about, we get to some deep practical stuff. We get to some real stuff. Like last week, I shared a pretty emotional letter from a single mom. But a lot of what we're celebrating this year in particular is the fact that even though we got a lot of stuff to figure out and we have a lot of stuff to work through, that we as single parents, we're still hot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still hot to be a single parent. It's hot to do the things that we have to do, because a lot of people try to, and maybe sometimes even cultural, make us feel like, oh, well, we're not good enough, or we're not complete unless we're with somebody, and our parenting is lacking because there's not two adults in the home, and blah, 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 blah. But no, we're saying, nope, being a single parent, it's hot. It's legit. If you want to, meet somebody, get married again, that's fine. But for the context that we're in right now, it's cool and it's fine and it's okay. So we've talked about that on the show a lot. They've heard me blab and yap about that so much, but they haven't really heard your perspective on our theme for this year, on our hot era, if you will. So I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts as to why, or maybe you just disagree. So maybe the segment's going to be like you saying, Anthony, actually, I disagree with that whole
being a single
premise.
parent is ugh.
Yeah, you might be like, actually, I don't like it. So we can get to that.
Then
but
I'll just be over.
What is single parent hot era? What's your thoughts on that? Let's go.
I think when I really think about it, not saying that other people our age don't have it together, but I think as a parent, you're like forced to really have your life together.
Mm-hmm.
Or I mean, hopefully you do. But I think for me, being like in a space where like I know what I want out of my life, I have my home in order. I have my life in order. I do have, as much as young me would have been like, what? I do have my life scheduled. I know what I've got going on, have my finances secured. And I think that that to me, as an adult, even looking into like going into a relationship is such an attractive feature. Just really someone having it together. So I think, not to say that you can't be a little messy, because we all are, but I think just as a parent, especially a single parent, you really have to have it together. You got to have the schedule down. You got to know what's going on. You have to be on top of everything. And I think that comes across really with like a lot of confidence, and comes across as just a really well put together person. So
It's interesting that you say that, because like this might be weird to say, but there was a time now like I don't care, whatever, I'm just gonna do me. But there was like a time, maybe even like a short time, where I was in like a period where I didn't feel secure in my single parentness. I didn't see it as hot. I saw it as something like, okay, I'm doing it for now, but I need almost to like get out of this season or phase or whatever you want to call it. And so I was looking at just who I was, especially putting myself out there dating wise. But we live in like a smaller town. So like the practical options in our town are first, like there's limited compared to maybe some other towns. But in our town in particular, it's very, conservative, I guess, and like the type of people here, a lot of them kind of think and kind of act the same, basically. And I don't necessarily like fit into a lot of the cliches, I guess, when people think about the men in our town. And again, I just had to be like, okay, cool, like that's fine with me. But there was a time where I was like, well, like, so what do I do? Like, do I need to change this about myself? Do I need to adjust? Do I need to this? And I legit had a friend once say like, well, maybe Anthony, it's because like, look at you, like you're a good dad, you have a job, you have, your money in order, you do this and do that and do that. So like, I don't think a woman's gonna like want to step into that because you have your stuff too much together. And the girls around here, they want like the project and the bad boy and the guy. I literally just saw she put it out there, like a single mom put on Facebook today that she's just like, hey, like if you have like at least one felony on your resume, like that really gets me going. Like that's the people in my community. And so like I was like, well, should I go commit one so I can attract somebody? But now I'm like,
at least go to jail once.
Like should I? Like is that what's considered hot? And so anyways, for you to say like actually, and like I'll let you expand on this, because what I'm hearing you say is like, no. Actually, it's hot and legit the fact that we do have all our crap together. And if people don't like that, then that's on them, right? Yeah.
Well, and I think, we are grown. We are the adultier adults at this point. Like, and like, the more I realize that, I also, bartend a little bit on the side.
Oh, yeah.
And so, people are coming in with their birth year in the early 2000s.
Oh.
And I'm like, they're born in a different century than we are. And I'm like, when I really am thinking about this, and I'm like, back when I was like newly divorced and I was only, how old was I? 24, 25. And even back then it was kind of like, yeah, like a little project is fine, like a little drama. And then the older you get, I think it's like, I don't want someone who I have to teach how to be a partner. I don't want someone who I have to teach how to be an adult.
Yep.
I think the older you get, the more you're like, my philosophy is like majorly, if you coming into my life doesn't improve my life,
okay,
I don't need you there. So if you're going to come in, cause problems, not for me. So I think for me, someone who is put together, someone who knows who they are, someone who knows what they're doing and what they want to be doing, even if you haven't accomplished all of that yet, but if you have those goals and you know what you want, that to me is like so attractive. And I think as a single parent, you are kind of forced to step into that role a little bit faster than maybe other people our age who are still single and don't have kids. You kind of still have that freedom to mess up a little bit more often than we do. So
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. And I think it's as weird as it sounds, it is like, again, in my opinion, and it sounds like your opinion too, like it is good and hot and desirable the fact that you not only have to live in that way, but are living in that way. Because I know that it can feel, and as weird as it sounds, like discouraging the fact that a lot of what people are attracted to and what appeal to a lot of people is a lot of projects or F-boys or, people they feel like they need to come in and save. Like there's a lot of that in today's culture. And so like for us, so like, well, I don't have an option to even like pretend to be like that. If that's what they want, I'm sorry, I just can't be like that.
You can't afford a fun little trip to jail.
No, I'll literally literally lose my kids if I have a felony on my record. So no, thank you.
We're good.
I'm fine with that. And so, but it's again, as weird as it sounds, I don't think people out there hear enough that, hey, like it's cool that you have your stuff together.
It is hot to have your shit together.
Yeah,
Sorry
I agree.
For swearing.
No, go for it. Because I think you're right. I think it's true. And I don't think that's said enough. As weird as it sounds, I don't think that's said enough. So I think one thing I will just say maybe to somebody listening to this who maybe needs to hear this, and maybe I'll say this and you can share your thoughts on this, is the person out there who has all their stuff together, who has like, okay, like I'm me, but maybe you do desire to be in a relationship. Because we said this on the show before, but want to make it clear to any new people, like we're not saying like, hey, it's only hot if you are single.
Yeah.
And married people or dating people, they're losers because they sold out or whatever. Like it's just you do what works for you.
Yeah.
And that's what's truly hot, is you doing what works for you and what works for your kids.
Well, and not accepting any less than what is going to work for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, because I think that sometimes the temptation can be like, hey, I have all my stuff together and here's my standards because I'm doing my thing and it's all this. But because those standards are high, which I think they should be, but because they are high, that kind of limits the amount of people who can, pole vault over those standards. And so only, and so it can get lonely. It can get discouraging. And so a lot of people would want to do is, if we're using the pole vaulting analogy, like take their pole down and lower it to be like, okay, well, maybe that's a little too high. Like I'll just kind of settle and then I'll settle and then I'll settle. And the next thing you know, you have some scumbag around your kids who probably shouldn't be around your kids or is not even close to meeting your standards. And now you're compromising a lot of stuff. So
it's definitely not worth all of the drama that it will be in the end, for sure.
Yeah. And I think that if you're hearing this and need to hear this, like you are worthy of keeping that standard high and not watering yourself down or watering your standards down just to kind of fill that hole. And that's why I really do like talking about this topic, because I think that a lot of the noise coming at single people is like, well, when are you going to meet somebody? When are you going to date again? When are you going to get married? And it's not a matter of like, do you want that or where are you at with that? It's a matter of like when. So we have a lot of those pressures, and when that's not met in like a timely way, that's when standards and priorities and expectations start getting watered down. So
yeah,
I don't know. I would just say if you're doing you and it's working and you're fine and you're content, like that's hot. That's awesome. Don't worry what other people are saying. Like, and eventually if somebody does come along and clears the pole vaulting bar, then that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Okay. So there you go. Anything else when it comes to hot era stuff?
I mean, we're getting into summer, so it's about to be.
It's literally going to be
hot girl
era.
time.
Let's do
hot
it.
Parent time.
Hot parent summer. So I want to see all of you out there. I want to see you.
I really come alive. So
doing your thing. That's when you come alive.
Yeah.
Is that summer's your season, huh?
Yes.
Oh.
Finally, the seasonal saddies go away and can come back to life.
I like it.
So
we're legit, like literally and figuratively gonna be hot this summer, right?
Yes.
Okay. You heard it. That's where we're making a commitment. And well, I guess I should probably start getting in the gym. What is it? February? No, it's March. Oh my gosh, it's already March. Okay, I might be screwed. But it's fine. It's fine. We'll make it work. It's
gonna be fine.
We're fine. Anyways, everybody, that's gonna do it.
I think
Unless you have
so.
anything, you're good.
Yeah.
Because I think we're good. So I'm gonna go sign up for the gym, get ready for hot parent summer, and put in that overtime. And Steph, what are you gonna do? What do you got? You got to work tomorrow, huh?
I do have to work. I'm gonna just keep working.
Okay, well that sounds fun.
I do. I mean, I go to physical therapy twice a week, so it's basically working out. I'm
That's
in the
like
gym.
the gym.
I've been in the
Okay.
gym.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you
My
already
main
again just like
goal.
reading books. You already read like probably. Well, last time you said 12, and at this point it's probably like what 24. So I'm trying to catch up. So now
I wish it was 24. I am on my 15th.
I see. I knew it. I knew it was not 12 anymore. I knew you were already far in advance. So there's a lot of ways I need to catch up to you, but that's okay. We'll get there. But so I'm going to go put in that work. We're going to make this thing happen. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Single Parents Podcast. Thank you so much. Hope you all have a good week. And until next time, you all out there, just stay beautiful. Bye.
Bye.